Hey, 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 what's going on? Podcast Nation, is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy with Jason, the Kain automotive version of Strategy with Jason. I get to talk to everybody that is presenting at the upcoming Kain Auto event. If you haven't got your ticket, you need to get your ticket right now. Go to Kain.auto. Tickets are still available. One of the hotels are already booked, but there's like three others, so there's going to be tons of room for you. It's one of the events that I look forward to every single year. I think it's an event that does an amazing job of really bringing both vendors and dealers together in a collaborative environment to really get some cool strategies, insights, and best practices. In fact, speaking of best practices and incredibly smart strategies, I have an amazing guest today. I have Atul Patel with Orbee. Atul, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm glad we were able to do this. We tried to actually record this yesterday in the middle of a tornado, and the power went out. So I appreciate you jumping back
Absolutely.
on.
Well, at least even though I'm in Houston, it wasn't me with the weather problems. So I'm grateful for that. But hopefully you got out of all of that okay.
I did, and glad to be here. And I'm super excited to really kind of get into your keynote. I think the evolution of integrations, what a very timely topic. And I'm just so excited to see from what perspective you take on that topic. But Atul, before we get into that, I love kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story. I mean, because I'm just fundamentally fascinated, because I don't think anybody just wakes up one day and goes, yeah, I'm going to spend the majority of my life in the automotive industry. So let's start there. How did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
All right, cool. Well, yeah, so it actually started, I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've started several companies now in ad tech, martech, data, and I had recently sold one of my companies. And I was sort of doing this sort of the entrepreneurial circuit, talking on stage and in little panels in the Irvine community. And I came across my co-founder who was working on an idea for dealerships. And so I started to get involved a little bit, like over the course of 3 months, got more and more involved. And then over the course of years, kept kind of doubling down my effort in this industry. And so now I'm sort of all in on it. I feel like I actually do wonder, how many years in do you not to get to say you're new to automotive? But I still pride myself in wanting to bring a lot of these outside of automotive learnings to this space. So one of my startups was around lead generation trust. Like when leads are generated, an idea is sort of given along with that lead to all the other verticals: insurance, healthcare, financial services, and so on. And it's that patent that I created that became a really powerful force, but also had social advertising in the early days before Facebook even had a buying tool, and then video advertising, video syndication. So I take a lot of those learnings and bring them into the automotive conversation. And it's super exciting. In fact, in the last few months, I'm seeing increased convergence between outside and inside. So traditionally, we've been going out to the market saying, hey, like, what's out there that we could use? We're now seeing outside of industry companies say, we need to tap the automotive vertical. It's not just about the OEMs, it's about all these dealers. Maybe it's because the dealers have grown in size, that they're now reaching a certain level of importance. And so that's my background. And so I actually feel like I'm getting the best of both worlds. I'm sort of in the middle of the auto industry and the rest of ad tech, martech, and CX and data.
Well, once you get bit by the automotive bug, Atul, I mean, it's going to be really hard for you to ever get out, right? You're in the club. You're in the club.
Like Spider-Man, right?
Exactly. It's like you just look. I tried one time. It was for like 3 months. I think it was 2015 to get out. And like an episode from Godfather, I was like, and they sucked.
Yeah.
Back in, So like once you're in, man. So
once you're in. Well, Peter Fong, who's chief commercial officer at Orbee, him and I have gotten close over the last 5 years. He was a previous NADA, previous brand president at Chrysler, at Ford, regional manager, knows David Kain for years and years back in their Ford days. And he's been a lifer. And you could definitely see the kind of network he's formed over the years. And so I definitely value the personal side of kind of honing into one industry. But again, like if it weren't so dynamic and we weren't able to do a lot of different fun things, I'd probably get bored. But I think like where we're at as an industry, where Orbee's at as a company, it keeps me distracted enough and moving fast enough that I'm not even looking out the window. You're seeing AI and this thing and all this stuff go by. And I'm actually like, how about I just correlate what I'm hearing into automotive rather than thinking I need to leave and start something else. So it's been a fun exercise in the last few years now.
But you're so right. The automotive industry is kind of this just like big ball of rubber bands.
Yeah.
It's just fun to play with, right? There's just so many different little aspects to it and so many fun opportunities. And this is a perfect segue kind of going into what you'll be talking at the Kain Automotive event, which I'm one of my favorite events. So I'm so excited to see you there. When I was talking to Daivd and they're like, hey, we do some podcasts, we'll talk to a few people. I look at the list. I'm like, I know like 95% of these people. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. But you probably took most of us on rides in Vegas, right?
I probably at one point have probably taken almost everyone on this list of speakers on a ride once before. But the evolution of integrations, for years, for years, I've been talking about how siloed our industry is, just inside the dealership, and then also within vendors outside of the dealership. All the way down to the point where sometimes departments are talking to each other like in Morse code, or just like they got flags out. They're like trying to communicate with each other back and forth, and there's just so I'm super excited to see how integration has been going on now for a good chunk of time, but we continue to better at it. And I love to kind of hear, from your perspective, how the evolution's kind of, has progressed. And then also what are maybe 2 or 3, takeaways that dealerships can expect from your keynote at the upcoming Kain event.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great setup. And, when I think this might be my first sort of keynote, so the pressure's on. I'll be front row so I can heckle you. There you go. Don't worry. Yeah. No pressure. I'll be front row. So perfect. No funny faces. So basically, where the idea of speaking about this came from was, again, not on a sales call or an account call with one of our dealerships, but rather my own personal life. And that's an important piece of my conversation is I want everyone to kind of step back and forget about automotive. Just think in general, what are the experiences that they love and what are the experiences that they don't enjoy? And what we tend to do, what I've increasingly seen is we tend to sort of try to maybe envy the rest of the market and be like, well, look at what this other industry is doing. Why can't we do that? But I also see cases where other industries or other use cases are horrible. Sure. And we're actually ahead of the curve on that kind of experience. So it's funny. I'll give a couple examples. So I was at Beaver Creek with my family, and my 12-year-old had a little mini concussion snowboarding, not even on a black diamond. It's just like the tail end of the night. So it was kind of a bummer. And I got these bills to pay, right? And bill number one, same $15 copay, right? And on the first bill, I was able to go to paymydoctor.com and pay this bill. But on the second one, I couldn't because I had forgotten about it, right? And it's interesting. They probably stopped working with Pay My Doctor, right? But there was no seamless integration to anybody else. So this, I feel like, is a horrible experience that I've had. Another example is like when you're, reaching out to a company and they can't really easily look you up, or you've been transferred from, customer service person to the next one, and you're starting over and explaining who you are and your situation. Now, it's gotten certainly better, and certain brands and certain workflows do a good job handing it down. Sometimes they do that overlay kind of relay handoff, but it's not always an amazing experience. On the other hand, there are some really great ones. The other day, my internet went down. So just speaking about internet and tornadoes, my internet went down, and I reached out to AT&T using their chat tool. It was humanless, obviously, but it was going through a lot. It was like checking your gateway now remotely. I'm like, cool. And then finally it says, hey, we can't seem to reach your gateway. Would you like to schedule an appointment? Schedule an appointment. Then get a text 5 minutes later saying, hey, good news. There's actually a broader outage that we're investigating. So we've paused your appointment and we'll let you know very soon. Next thing you know, internet's live. I get a text. The appointment's canceled. Amazing. Right. So you have a lot of amazing use cases or examples that go smoothly and a lot that go poorly. And what I want us to do in this industry is to really stop looking back and saying, like, you know, this happens there and we don't do this, and start looking forward, because that's the key takeaway to get from this, which is if you see an experience you think you like out there, bring it to this industry, bring it to the vendor partners, because now it's really like it's a limitation of the ideas and the kind of the envelope we want to push in our industry. So if you're like, hey, I use this chat program and it like kind of knew what I was up to, well, then ask your chat provider, hey, is there a way to connect what the consumer is doing in the digital retailing tool and also your chat program? No, but if you use our, this is also going to push all of us vendors to say, well, you know what? I should work with everyone, and I shouldn't force you to use all 20 of my things. I should be able to integrate one of my things with 19 other vendors. So I think that's kind of my goal in this keynote, is to kind of think about all of these sort of life experiences that we have as consumers outside of automotive and bring them in.
Well, and it's those little things that you're talking about. Look, little things make big deals in the experience that we have with a company. I remember I stayed at this boutique hotel, and this was years ago. This wasn't even that recent. It was years ago. And I remember kind of going online and making my booking, and they asked if I was going to be self-parking or valeted, and valeted, and they asked me for my plate number. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. All right. So I just put it in there because I am one of those weird people that happen to know what their plate number is.
Okay.
and didn't think anything of it. It was New Year's Eve. It was a New Year's Eve. I was taking my wife. We were going to this nice, fun boutique hotel. We're going to go out for dinner, all this stuff. So we pull up to this boutique hotel, right up to the valet. They open the door. Welcome to the hotel, Mr. Harris.
There we go.
Am I wearing my...
Yeah, exactly.
Like I was looking like, well, thanks, that's great. Okay, so then it keeps going. We walk into the hotel. The front desk is like, over here, Mr. Harris, we'll get you booked in. I was like, what is going on right now? I have never stayed at this hotel in my life, Atul. And it was that integration of data collection from the website over to a system that the valet had, where they were putting in the plate numbers as cars were pulling up. And they knew my name. Then they radioed in, letting the front desk know that we were coming in, and it was. And
it wasn't. And here's the interesting thing, right? It's not always a robust technology solution. No. It's not real-time APIs. It could be as simple as any form of communication. And that's, I think, what's important. I think you're alluding to, which is the types of experiences we expect. I mean, heck, when I order Starbucks, my points don't show up. I use the app. I'm a sucker for the gamification they put in there. And so I'll do something and my points don't show up instantly. There's probably a reconciliation happening. And so what I tell people is, when you envision a possible kind of user experience that could change the business,
sure,
don't get caught up in how it's done, right? That it has to be real time. It has to be API. Screw FTP. This is bad. It's like, don't worry about the way it's done, because all of those things still apply. There are mega tech companies who still move paper around, right? Lexmark, which prints all of our bills, also has a company that can scan those bills and convert it to data. So it's almost like we shouldn't get caught up in the how. We should be more focused on what kind of experience we want to give.
Yes.
And this is, of course, where Orbee comes in, right? I like to say we're very use case driven. For many years, the industry kind of saw Orbee as kind of like this, hey, we're not really sure where they sit. And it turned out that it started to become clear to us that we don't sit in any chair. We're just floating in this middle, what we call middleware. And we sort of want people to kind of envision our industry as like possibilities. And that's why we sort of envision us as being the middleware of possibilities. And like you said, man, it's like little things go a long way. And I think that sometimes the vision that we all have is big. Like, I want to transform my whole business. And then we get caught up in all the complexities, and then we never take a step, right?
Yeah.
Versus, let me just
my analysis, right?
Exactly. Well, what nobody sees is down here is a bunch of paper, okay, on the floor, right behind me. And I could just I was like, oh man, I really need to rethink my filing of, because we have a lot of employees in a lot of states now, and each state has different filings. And sometimes the CEO's address goes into some of this. So I get this paperwork and I'm like, so instead of thinking about a wholesale change in the way I store this, I just bought a couple of folder tabs and started storing this stuff, right? And so if we think big, act small may be a good statement. I've heard that quite a bit in my career. And so if we think big in terms of what is possible, and then we act small in terms of how to get it done, and we think of integrations as a core method to get there, I think our industry is going to continue to kind of almost set a great example for other ones. And in fact, just given that I know a lot of people outside of automotive, I'm now getting called about questions about what we're doing. Hey, how do you guys connect the data from the ERP system to the web activity and the e-commerce? I'm like, well, we don't really use Shopify and QuickBooks here, but let me tell you how we are doing it with this company called CDK and this dealer website called Dealer Inspire. And so I'm having a blast, actually sharing our best practices from in here with the outside world.
But you're right, though. I mean, we do have some amazing technologies that have generated some amazing processes. But I think we need to continue to evolve the integrations for that. And exactly like you said, those little things execute big ideas. And I think what I find, it's a mindset. If we don't do it intentionally, it'll never be done. If we don't take the time to really look at the big idea, right, and then work backwards towards the integrations and all the little pieces that need to happen so that it can create this amazing experiences. Here's a cool thing I find with the experiences is they happen regardless if you're intentional about it or not.
Yeah,
that's the kicker, right? They happen, and I think taking a look at the way we are integrating systems and people and processes, all right, that's being intentional about creating that experience, which is a win-win for everybody. Well, I know we could probably jam about this for a good another hour, and and I'm telling everybody out there, if you want to hear more about what we've just been talking about, you need to go to the Kain Automotive event. I'm so excited for your keynote presentation here this next week. But before I let you go, Atul, for everybody out there watching and listening right now, I would love to connect with you and learn more about Orbee. What's the best way to do so?
Well, first, you can reach me on all the social channels. You can email me at atul.patel@orbee.com. And lastly, just go over to orbee.com, ORBEE.com. And under our media events section, there's a whole guide to the Kain Digital Success Workshop. And we're excited to be there. And I think we're hosting some gatherings and things like that. But yeah, happy to. It's been a little bit since we've all gotten vendors together and dealerships that are thought leaders. So it'll be a good refresher. And I think this kicks off a long list of other events that are coming. So Kain did right by going first.
I completely agree. Well, Atul, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. I'm really looking forward to seeing you here this next week. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jason.